Logan, let's just go back a little bit. You kind of touched upon it very briefly. I'm always very interested because being in the world in the film world myself, there's always these little moments or a moment that defines your life to go on a path which you never probably thought that would, right? Like what was that one moment or one movie or one soundtrack where everything sort of turned upside down for you as a young kid or a teenager or a young adult, that this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up in Kansas, where not many people are in the entertainment industry or, going into film or music. And so it was a big leap as a young kid deciding to do this. I grew up playing in orchestras and playing music and my whole life being involved in that world. But I remember I was actually kind of starting as a filmmaker in a way. I was making little films and even a documentary is kind of where I first started. I was making a documentary for a class project, and as I was like making the documentary, I I just stumbled into uh music for movie. I didn't even really put it together that that was a thing, and that I just only knowing that like I had to put music to my documentary was how I discovered it. And I was talking to my parents about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we have this whole CD collection of all of these soundtracks. Like, why don't you like take a listen?" And so I opened it up and started listening and exploring that. And yeah, a lot of Hans Zimmer was in there actually. So I ended up putting like ridiculously epic gladiator music to my documentary on the Telegraph, I think. And so it was just, but it was my first discovery into it. And after that, I was just listening to a lot of Michael Giacchino, Hans Zimmer, a lot of composers that were writing in the early 2000s when I was growing up. And yeah, it was kind of a turning point. I remember when I was in high school, they were doing these like film music concerts. So they were screening a bunch of Pixar movies, uh, Ratatouille, Toy Story, all this stuff with live orchestra and like playing the music to the film and everything. And this was uh, happening in San Francisco. And I went to that concert. And this was kind of at the point where I was trying to decide, like, do I want to do film music? Do I want to be a normal Kansas kid and go into engineering or something? Um, and I showed up to the concert and I made a bet with myself. I was like, if Michael Giacchino ends up coming to the concert, I'll do it. I'll be a film composer. And he wasn't announced or anything. It wasn't anything. And he walked in unannounced to the concert and was like, "Oh, I'm here. Like, thanks for playing my music, everything." And I was like, "Dang, that's crazy. Like, I have to do it
Wow.
now." And so I went down and I talked to him, and he gave me like just advice about what I should study, what I should be doing to be a film composer. And so yeah, there was a bit of divine intervention that kind of pushed me
100%.
over the line.
That's
Because I
that's
don't know if
awesome.
I was just at a split point and I needed something to just push me over the line, and it's the best decision I ever made. I can't imagine doing anything else now. So
Did you
yeah.
tell Michael that
um
I told this to myself? Like, did you tell him that?
yeah, I did. He he was like, "Wow, that's cool, kid. Like, keep going." But he gave me some good advice because I went to USC to study film and film music, and Michael had uh, spoken and kind of adjunct professored a little bit there for a little bit, and he kind of told me what classes I should take. He told me to study film more than I studied music. Even he thought that
Mm.
like film and the study of film was the most important thing that a composer could learn, more than even the craft of music itself. Um,
Yeah. I think
which I've
I became
similarly gathered from.
sorry, go
I was
on.
just going to say that also when I've worked with like I worked with this composer Carter Burwell a little bit, and we do music for the morning show, and his knowledge of story and how music works in the context of a structure and a plot is really what makes him a great composer. And I can totally see what Michael meant when he was saying that you have to study film and understand film to be able to do anything else. So
That is so true. That is such a cool
yeah,
story. I think the very first time I came across Michael's name was in the late 90s or early 2000, and I still have that soundtrack somewhere. He did the soundtrack for the very first Medal of Honor game,
yeah,
because it was by DreamWorks Interactive, form, part of Spielberg, Geffen, and Katzenberg. And then later, I think he composed, I think his first major breakthrough, I could be wrong, was Lost. He did Lost.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he's
It
a
was
great
interesting.
composer.
He was in he almost started out in video games, which is really interesting because that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
what at all you know him for now. But he, yeah, it's an interesting world.
And he worked with J.J. Abrams, I think, on Mission Impossible 3. I could be wrong. But, your story reminded me of another story. I was speaking to Andrew. I always have a hard time pronouncing his last name. Kawczynski. I'm not gonna say
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
he did the music for Gran Turismo, and he works with Lorne Balfe and Hans Zimmer quite a bit.
right.
So he was telling me, because I had him on for Gran Turismo, like I think late last year or somewhere last year, and his story was pretty cool too, because uh, he was into music. He didn't know anything about this world of soundtracks. Like he didn't even know that existed. And he was going to some school, and he got an option of, working with a paid job at some, let's say, orchestra, uh,
Hmm.
or there's an unpaid internship. This is early 2000s, with a composer named Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
And he went to his parents, and his parents are like, "Take the one with Hans Zimmer," and the rest is history. So it's interesting how those things work. That your story is really cool though. Like I mean, that is major divine intervention, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, I have points in my career where it's been situations similar to that, where it's reaffirming that I'm on the right path.